Good afternoon, everybody. From here in the U.S., this is Duffy Cullen. We're going to be doing episode number 45 of eCHO Livestream. And in this episode, we're going to do kind of a preview of KubeCon EU. We're going to talk about the different things that are coming up. We're going to go through some of the talks that we're looking forward to talking to. I'm using the word we a lot because I am actually joined by my very good friend and brother from another mother, Mr. Nicholas Lane, who I've worked with at multiple companies before, and he has now joined me here at Isovalent. Welcome, Nick.
Oh, hey, Duffy. Fancy meeting you here.
It's a small world.
It is a small world. So happy to be on the show. Big fan, long-time caller, long-time listener, first-time caller.
Yeah. So Nick may actually will probably be joining us for more and more of these as we move forward, and he's been working with me in the field in a field capacity just like I am here at Isovalent. So pretty exciting stuff.
Yeah.
Here is the news of the week. We're going to be would like to see this document. You can reach this document by going to the link in the lower right-hand corner, which I think is over there. Down here at the bottom. And it goes to hackmd.io/echo-live. And that will show you all of the published notes from our previous episodes. This one is episode 45. Despite the thumbnail, there was like a typo there. I only just now caught it like right before the show, but we'll get it updated. But that is what's happening. So blog alert. There's been a really great new blog out. That came out in the Isovalent blog. So if you're watching our blogs on Isovalent and on Cilium, they're both great places to see new blogs. This is actually talking about the next generation mutual authentication with Cilium service mesh. And so, in my opinion, this is like mind-blowing and also really exciting because we're starting to talk about like where we're going with like some of the MTLS parts of it. When we talk about service mesh at Cilium, at Isovalent and as part of the Cilium project, frequently people are, a little confused about like how this will actually take shape. And if you want to understand more about how this will all take shape, there was actually a previous episode number 44, that was just recorded last week by Thomas and Liz, where they get into the inside track on sidecarless service mesh, and they really kind of talk about what we've learned so far and kind of the direction that we're going to be taking the product. But back to this blog real quick. This blog talks about how we can do mutual TLS without providing certificates to the application, but in a way that doesn't require sidecars.
Yeah, this is something that I think is like really, really fascinating. Not exposing the certificates to the end user or to the pods or I guess the services themselves saves so much complexity on the user perspective, right? And also just really strengthens everything. It's really, really, really cool.
Yeah. The other thing that I really like that this calls out is that there are a couple of different ways to check that box of whether you're encrypting traffic between all the things, right? One way to do that is by leveraging MTLS. And I've seen a ton of adoption of service meshes over time in our previous roles together, where people were really just looking for a way to kind of check that box and say that they're encrypting between all the things, but they didn't want to take on the complexity of generating certificates for all the things. And so they instead took on the complexity of a sidecar mesh, which is, if that's the requirement, that absolutely does satisfy it,
Yeah.
But one of the other ways to do this, and I've been talking about this since my CoreOS days, is actually using node authentication, right? Wherein you're going to you're going to opportunistically encrypt all traffic between nodes.
Yeah, right? This is like really, really one of the coolest things. Like, especially with WireGuard, now that that's like in the kernel. It's been in the kernel for a little bit, but like that really improves the MTLS perspective for like from node to node traffic. So it's not like app to app. It's really just all traffic everywhere is encrypted with identity, certificates. That's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and with the WireGuard implementation in Cilium, we actually generate a unique key for every node, and then we populate that key in a way that all of the other nodes can actually participate. So like there's actually it's a really pretty secure implementation of how we go about that. And then the other piece of it, like the big takeaway for me, is like if you do that's another one of those ones where like I feel like it's kind of important to kind of rationalize is when you think about if you're doing node encryption, if you're doing opportunistic node to node encryption between things, then what you're doing is you're paying that encryption cost once on all traffic egressing the node, rather than paying that encryption cost for every application hosted on that node, which is more the sidecar model, right?
Yeah.
And so this is, so like they call out right here in a pretty obvious way, like significantly more efficient, 3 times better latency, 2 times better requests per second, and scalable due to not requiring sidecar proxies. Like this is one that I've always been pretty excited about. Now, it does actually call out some cons. Like if you were leveraging WireGuard to do this node-to-node encryption, it's not going to really kind of tie into like certificate-based identity management systems per se, right? Because you only have the node's identity. The node is encrypting all traffic between itself and other nodes, but not necessarily, it doesn't have any construct of like what that traffic is or whether that traffic is allowed. Now, where we get into it next is actually like taking the story even further. So if we were to take it beyond the ability to do this work, then we can actually also talk about mutual authentication with Cilium and Cilium service mesh, which means that we can do MTLS, leveraging some of this functionality from other projects and enabling, those tools like Spiffy and Cert Manager and those sorts of things to generate the certificate. And then we can, in eBPF, wire up the authentication mechanism so that we can actually ensure that any given application can use a form of identity to encrypt itself between itself and other endpoints. And we also talk about the upcoming implementation of the Spiffy identity piece that we're working on. So pretty exciting stuff. If you're interested in this space and you want to know more, definitely come check out the blog, and also definitely check out the previous episode of eCHO Office Hours, which was eCHO episode 44. And if you're going to be at KubeCon in Valencia, come join us at the booth on one of our 2 booths. We're going to be in 2 locations on the show floor. We're going to be both a Cilium OSS booth and also the isovalent booth. And so just come by either one, and we're happy to talk to you about like what the direction of service mesh is and like what we're actually doing there.
Yep, for sure. Really quickly, going back to the blog post, one thing that I really liked about it is that we make a lot of like, bold claims, I would say, about performance, but we also, towards the bottom, we share the scripts that we use to generate this data, right? So you can look at it, you can spin up exactly what we did and see the results for yourself. I think that's that'll speak for itself for sure.
Yep.
And
big shout.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and big shout out to Joe, who has been doing a lot of this work on trying to like come up with testing that allows us to understand the what we're looking at here. And he's done a lot of work to actually try to even the playing field between these components as well. So like some of these graphs are can be alarming in the differences that they're showing, but we've done a lot of work in this configuration to basically try to give each the best mark that it can get.
Yep.
Improving, configuring concurrency and Istio and those sorts of things. Like, yeah. So this is meant to be an apples to apples comparison.
For sure. And if you, like Duffy was saying, if you want to talk about it more, come check out the booth at KubeCon and at eBPF Day.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of, we have a co-located event with KubeCon this year. And it's like we do at most of the KubeCons. This one will be eBPF Day. Last year, I had the honor of being a co-host of eBPF Day, and so had a really great time. And this year in Europe, it will be hosted by Liz and Sarah Natovny. So that's pretty awesome. If you're curious about what the schedule for CN eBPF Day is, you can follow this link, and it will take you to a good schedule for what's actually happening there. And just like last time, we've got a lot of really great talks. We're going to start with a future of eBPF and Cloud Native with Thomas Graf. We're going to start with a welcome, and we're excited about eBPF from both of your hosts, Liz and Sarah. And then we're going to do a keynote by Thomas Graf. And then we're going to jump into some of the other talks that are coming out. Like we have a good talk by the folks from Windows giving us an update into what's actually happening in that space, getting Linux-based eBPF programs to run with eBPF for Windows. So like basically talking about the status of that port and what we can accomplish with it. IKEA will be delivering a talk, kind of a user-based talk. Like they have been an adopter of Cilium for some time, and so they're going to be talking about like what they're doing with it. We have a talk by Kamal and Dave Tucker from Polar Signals and Red Hat. We have another great talk by BPF Trace, talking about BPF Trace and leveraging that inside of Pixie, which is another one of the tools that leverages BPF in the space. But yeah, we have a bunch of really great talks kind of lined up for you, and I hope that you're going to really get a lot out of them. One of the talks I'm really looking forward to in this session is this one here, kind of toward the end of the day, where we're going to do a panel on Clustered, eBPF edition. If you haven't heard of Clustered, you should definitely check it out. It's a project that's hosted by David Flanagan, known as Raw Code on Twitter. And what happens is that you can actually get 2 teams or 2 individual people, and they each break the other person's cluster in some interesting way. And then those are the breaking part of it. And then you have the fixing part of it, where you have to actually, the other team has to actually figure out how it was broken and fix it. And it's kind of a fun Kubernetes escape room kind of thing. And we did this where we had some folks who were working at Isovalent and also in the Cilium community. And then we had a breaking team and a fixing team, and they came up with some pretty interesting breaks. And I was part of the fixing team, and we were able to figure out what actually happened to get that done. So if you want to see that, definitely come check it out. We're going to be playing parts or snippets of that session, both from the breaking and the fixing side at the eBPF day. And we're also going to have a panel where we can talk about what we learned and what was interesting about it.
Yeah, I'm very excited for that one. I haven't been able to see any of the clustered session at all, so I'm looking forward to the recording of this. I mentioned that, regrettably, I will not be at KubeCon this year, but Duffy, I know that you are going to be. So
I will. I will be there the whole time. In fact, I'm actually planning on staying a week after and spending a little vacation time over there. That'll be fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, this eBPF day I think is going to be really cool. One of the things that I really enjoy about it is seeing how much adoption there is across all these different companies and how they're all coming together to talk about the power of eBPF, which I think is a really fascinating and interesting technology, which is why I'm here.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the other piece of it that I feel like we don't really advertise terribly well, but if you have paid for a virtual ticket to attend KubeCon, then all of the co-located events are included in the price of that ticket. So you don't have to pay more to go and be a part of eBPF Day. If you're attending it virtually, then the co-located events are included in your ticket price. If you're going to be there in person, you do have to register separately, and the price will be, and the cost will be different. But if you're going to be there virtually, they're all included. So if you will see a talk here that you want to check out, and you have already paid for your virtual ticket, that's included in the ticket. Other co-located events. One of the other ones that I really enjoy is this thing that's called Cloud Native Rejects. And this is a thing where sometimes you get a talk back, or you put in a lot of work to, present a talk at KubeCon. And because, the people who are trying to actually select talks for KubeCon only have so many spots that they can give out. And it's really hard. And I know that you've actually done some of this work yourself, Nick.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's it is one of those things where you put together a talk and you're like, yeah, this is going to be really great, and then you get regrettably turned down by the KubeCon committee for any various reasons, and they'll give you feedback if you ask for it. But there's just so many talks, so few slots. But the Cloud Native Rejects is a very good way to showcase the the hard work that you did putting together this talk and your really good ideas in a more, let's say, intimate gathering. So yeah, both you and I have given a talk at Cloud Native Rejects, and it was a lot of fun and really worth it. So I highly recommend going to Cloud Native Rejects. I also highly recommend submitting talks to it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was a fun one. I think that was San Diego. Was that San Diego?
That was San Diego. Yep.
Yeah. Back in the time before.
Yes, right before everything. And there's some great talks in this Cloud Native Reject schedule for this year. I mean, we have Leon Lee is presenting. I just had that one pulled up. I can't remember the name of it.
Secret Management, the Software.
Yes, that's going to be really great. I see Francis Laniel is also doing eBPF Ready Kernel 5.10 for Minikube. That's really great. Obviously, eBPF, near and dear to our heart. There's just a lot of great talk. So I highly recommend going and checking out Cloud Native Rechecks for sure.
That's really awesome. Yeah. Yeah, like lots of really great speakers and lots of really great talks. And I've linked the schedule for what's happening here in the notes as well. So this happens on Saturday, May 14th and Sunday, May 15th. And so if you're interested in these talks, definitely come check them out. One of the other talks I was actually kind of excited about was this one here, Supply Chain Security with Sigstore and Caverno by Adrian. And that should be a pretty good talk. I know that Adrian has actually just recently joined Guard, so that should be, like he should have a very good. They should have a very good view of how all of that will work.
Yeah,
really great talk. But yeah, like many of these are like great talks that people have put together that just didn't really that they didn't get a chance to actually get out there and talk about at the main event. But yeah, definitely come be a part of it.
Yeah.
What else is happening? So, like I said, we have 2 booths. We have we have 2 locations on the show floor. I should be wandering around in my my black bowler and my mask. So feel free to come say hello to me. I have all kinds of cool stickers, and I can also introduce you around to other people. So if you're just trying to expand your network, definitely come by and say hello. Let's see.
Yeah, I mean, Duffy's also like the nicest person in the world. So yeah, definitely come up and say hi. Don't be scared. I know he's very famous in the community, right. But allow the stars to leave your eyes for a moment and come say hi to the nicest person you'll ever meet.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And then there's a link to the blog posts where we're going to actually be talking about all of the different talks that are happening at KubeCon EU. And some of these are for the eBPF day, and some of these are actually at the main event. So if you're interested in adding these to your schedule, if you go to the blog post, these will actually link directly to the SCED event. So if you wanted to come and check out the IKEA talk, or if you wanted to talk about the talk that we have in Cloud Native Telco Day, where we're talking about Cilium and SRv6, or talking about connecting clusters on the edge, which is part of the Kubernetes Edge Day. Transparent live migration. This is actually a main event talk talking about transparent live migration of services between Kubernetes clusters by folks from OrangoDB.
That's going to be really cool.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that one.
I'm actually looking forward to all of these.
Yeah. And then this is a welcome vision and updates from the open source project, basically because we have donated Cilium as a CNI to the CNCF. It is now a part of that effort. And so at every KubeCon, you're going to get an update from a variety of different projects, including the Cilium one. And so here we have Laurent from Datadog, one of our maintainers. Thomas and Liz will be talking about an update and an overview of what's actually happening with the project. What else? We also have a journey to multi-cloud, and we have Kubernetes Networking 101. I believe that's also a main event. Yeah. Randy Abernathy, managing partner, will be talking about a variety of things, including Cilium. I love the title of this talk, and I think it should be a really good talk. So if you want to come check this one out, this one also should be really fun. Logs told us it was DNS. It felt like DNS. It had to be DNS, but it wasn't DNS. So for the first time, finally it wasn't DNS. And this is actually a great talk by Laurent and Elijah at Datadog.
Yeah, that's a fun little flip on the it's not DNS. It can't be DNS. It was DNS for sure.
DNS, yeah, exactly. Even when it wasn't DNS, it was DNS.
Yeah.
And then, another one of the talks I'm really looking forward to is this one that talks about better bandwidth management with eBPF, because inside of the Cilium project, we have the ability to do bandwidth management for pods. And so we do obviously spend a ton of time talking about, since we have effectively a container orchestration system, we're using C groups and those sorts of things to be able to better constrain memory and CPU and disk IO and that sort of stuff for pods. Even in more recent versions of Kubernetes, having the ability to pin particular applications to particular CPUs or NUMA domains, there's been a ton of work done there. But what we haven't really talked about is this, right? If you had multiple applications that were network bound, where they were consuming a lot of network, throughput, what would happen? Well, could you get a noisy neighbor scenario like that? Right? Clearly, yes. Right? Like for the most part, I would say that people don't run into this because there are already some capabilities for managing bandwidth, but like being able to tune things like this will actually be very good.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. One of the first things that customers ever asked me when I started working with Kubernetes back in the OpenShift like 3.1 days, so what was that, 2015,
yes.
was like, hey, so we've got limits on CPU and memory, but not networking, right? And I know that there are other projects that have done this as well, but I'm just glad to see that this is more and more becoming like a component of CNIs, which is, networking as a resource and something that we can like limit and control. It's really nice.
Yeah. And this also makes use of a new feature, or not a new feature, but a feature in the Linux kernel called BBR, which is the ability to kind of like handle TCP congestion much better than the default way of the Linux kernel. Now, what's interesting is that BBR has been as a TCP congestion control, has been in the Linux kernel for some time, but it hasn't been possible to do this inside of containers because that wasn't a namespace function. So now, with some of the changes that we've donated to the Linux kernel, that is going to be possible. And that's what you're going to see us talking about here. So it should be really exciting.
Yeah, this is a really fascinating one. Just seeing some of the earlier like slides on the BBR stuff, like seeing how it was able to, it was new in 2015 or so to the kernel, seeing the improvements we can get from BBR with throughput, because it's like improving on a technology that hasn't been changed in like 30 years up to that point, right?
Yeah.
Because before it was like we're just using the same technology that was invented in 1986, which was the same year I was invented. Exactly. So now we're like, oh, hey, maybe we can fix this, and people are, and it's really, really fascinating. So this is going to be a really fun talk.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those areas where I feel like, we've talked about this a little bit, but like, in containers in general, like one of the areas that I find most fascinating is that space where we're leveraging container orchestration systems like Kubernetes and those sorts of things. And that kind of changes the paradigm for like a Linux system, right? IP tables is a great example of what I'm talking about here. When we talk about things that Linux was never particularly well designed for when it came to like being able to make use of a container orchestration system. Another one is entropy, right? Like it wasn't really well designed for something where you could have multiple processes that were consuming entropy like that. Or, doing things like this, TCP congestion control. I mean, and we've learned a ton, like an absolute ton, about how to do this inside of container orchestration systems. Thanks to projects like Kubernetes and Docker and those sorts of things. But I feel like we still have more to learn, and this is just one of those areas where I feel like we're at least making positive traction on how to actually solve the problems.
Yeah, totally agree.
The next one we have is a guided tour of Cilium Service Mesh, just like we talked about before. You're going to be able to see this at any of our booths, and we're also going to be able to do a talk on it. So the main event talk will be on May 20th, and it'll be hosted by Liz Rice, and it should be a really great talk. So definitely come check it out and be in the audience and cheer Liz on. Liz is going to be very busy very busy this week, and I'm really looking forward to spending more time with Liz in person. It should be really a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
So there's actually one more talk that I'm going to add, even though my coworker Billy did not add it. Bill Mulligan, who has joined us here at Isovalent, he's actually put a talk up that is composability is to software as compounding interest is to finance. And so this talk is talking about composable projects that can be stacked and recombined and reused and built upon. And one of the projects that he'll be talking about is Cilium and things like Prometheus and OTel and CNI and CRI kind of implementations. So definitely come check it out. It's always good to see Bill out there talking about stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
You're going to have virtual office hours. So make sure you stop by the Cilium booth to get your Cilium swag, or if you're visiting virtually, like we will have virtual office hours on Wednesday, 18th, from 12:30 to 1:15 CEST, and we will see you there. So if you're, again, attending virtually, all those co-located events are free or free for you to attend. And then you can also just come swing by the booth. That booth will be available for you virtually. And I think, aren't you going to be in the virtual booth?
No, I'm not as far as I know. I certainly am up for it, but that I haven't talked to anyone yet.
It might be Hart that I'm thinking of, but I remember seeing somebody was going to be, I saw somebody's name associated with it. I can't remember who it was. I thought maybe it was you.
Yeah.
But one way or the other, should be fun. What else do we have? So then we're going to get into talks that we're excited about. So I will give you a link, one more link that shows you the schedule for KubeCon. And it's going to be multiple days, of course. So we have Sunday is where we can actually start picking up our badges. But then Monday through Friday is going to be a bunch of different talks, just a ton of things. So let me go back to the notes here, and then you can talk about the talks that you're excited about.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, sorry about that. So the talks that I'm very much interested in are there's quite a few. So my list doesn't really include any of the Cilium talks because, of course, I'm very excited about all the Cilium talks. One of them that I am excited for that isn't on my list, but it is on yours, is your talk with Cilium on EKS with Liz. That I think is going to be really, really cool. I think that's going to be an awesome talk. Obviously, you and Liz are fantastic, but the main thing is that EKS has some complicated networking stuff, like ENIs and the way they interact. It's surprisingly complicated. So I think that it'll be interesting to see what you guys have to say about that for sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead. So then one of them that I'm really interested in is this bypassing Falco, how to compromise a cluster without tripping the SOC by Shay Berkovich at BlackBerry. That one I think is going to be really interesting because it's how do you get around a software tool that's very quite popular, or a security tool that's quite popular in the ecosystem. And one of the things I was also very interested in is the fact that it's I've never seen somebody call out essentially another project in the CNCF as part of their talk, where they're they don't work for Falco and they're not showing you something that they found. They're somebody outside of the Falco project showing you how they've gotten around it. I've never seen a call out like this. So that was really fun and interesting to see. So I think that'll be a really cool talk.
And I think one we both selected is that steering committee AMA with Christoph, yes, Bob, Tim Pepper, and Dims.
Yeah, and Tim and Dims, Paris, and the best boy in the world, Stephen Augustus.
Yeah, he is awesome. Yeah, it should be a really good. It should be a really good one. So if you have questions about the Kubernetes steering committee and what they do, how it works, any of that stuff, definitely come check that talk out.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this group of people are all they're great. I can't imagine a better group of people representing Kubernetes in the CNCF. This is going to be a really good talk. So if you have questions and you want to know how things work, come and bring them to them.
Yep.
The next one is the Hitchhiker's Guide to Pod Security with Lockie. I think Lockie's a great speaker. Very, very super nice guy. One of the best guys in the world. And he's so knowledgeable. So I think this is going to be a really interesting talk around pod security as an admission controller, which is a fairly new thing in Kubernetes. That's going to be really awesome.
Yeah. I think I helped him kind of develop some of this stuff because we were talking about PSA, which is the new pod security stuff that's coming out. Mm-hmm. And we were also talking a little bit more, Lockie working at Microsoft, he's got an interest in OPA Gatekeeper, right? So it's one of the open source projects that that the team that Lockie works on is associated with, and so pretty exciting.
That is cool. I didn't know that. So for those of you who don't know, the pod security admission controller is now a change to the way that we're handling pod security, where before we're kind of requiring every deployment and everything to have a pod security. Now it's a part of the admission controller stack. Which gives more flexibility and things like that for managing pod securities around the entire cluster, which is really, really cool. And then finally, not finally, one that we both have is Keynote. The API is people with Stephen Augustus. Obviously, I just want to see anything with Stephen in it. But also I think this will be really great because he's right. Kubernetes isn't just built on technology; it's also built on people. And I think this is going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, I think I remember him saying this for the first time while we were at CoreOS. It was either him or it might have been Hart, but it was like somebody from our group, and it was like, and we were talking at the time. It was kind of a joke about like how slow sometimes an API can be, right? And then and when one of us realized that like the API is in fact people, it's not a machine that's being slow. It's actually like a person that has to do work to proceed a particular request forward. And you're like, wait, what? Yeah.
That's right. That was at CoreOS. That was a billing thing. The billing API, the underlying part of the billing API was a human being.
Yes.
That's right. That's so funny. Yeah. I forgot that's where it came from.
But I do love the title. I think it's a great fit for this talk, and it'll be a really good one.
I totally agree. And then finally, one that I saw that caught my attention was an allyship workshop, a human-centered approach to allyship. This looks like it'll be really good. It's something that I'm glad that we're discussing more in the Kubernetes community, in the CNCF community. It's the idea of like how to be a good ally, right? I think that these two, I looked at some of the speakers whose names I can't read. They seem pretty good. I don't know, but I think the topic is really great and worth discussing at a convention like this. I really think this is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, should be a good one. It's Mac Bufano and Raja Chitakya from Google.
So, both from Google. Yep.
Pretty awesome. And then some of the talks I'm looking forward to. Clearly, anything at the Cloud Native Security Day, I'm really excited about. This is another co-located event. And if you're interested in seeing what's happening here, again, this stuff is free for you if you're on a virtual ticket, or you have to register to see it in person. But this is always a blast. This year, I believe it's hosted by Martin and Lewis Dunham from Control Plane. And they should put on a heck of a show. I mean, both of them are just so amazing, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what they come up with this year for a security day. Usually there is a CTF or a capture the flag. If you haven't done a CTF before, this is a great introduction to it, because it really gives you the opportunity to kind of play with like understanding how security works and getting into like, being able to solve some of these things. And then there's of course a variety of other talks, including a keynote by Fabio Rapacelli, somebody I worked with at VMware and have the utmost respect for. So definitely check out that keynote and come check out all of the other stuff that's happening at Security Day. And then also pre-show, we're going to be doing, Liz and I are going to be doing a talk at the Amazon Container Days event. And you can find out more at Amazon Container Days Europe.splashthat.com. And you can register for free. It'll be May 10th through 13th and on the 17th. I believe our thing is on day 3. Yeah, day 3, May 12th, which is coming right up. And you're going to be able to watch it on Twitch. And it'll be Liz and I talking about Cilium on EKS Anywhere. It is the default. It is the default CNI for EKS Anywhere, so that should be a fun one. And then a talk by my good friend Adolfo, who will be talking about making secure Kubernetes supply chain work for you. Now, just to this last release, we finally did reach a point in the Cilium supply chain where we're leveraging. And actually, this is a ton of the work done by Adolfo and by other members of the community to improve the security supply chain for Kubernetes. So if you want to understand more about what happened there and how that's working and what's happening and how to actually even do verification of that whole thing, definitely come check out this talk. I know that he spent a ton of work on this, and everybody else and a bunch of other folks from the community have done work there as well. So I'm pretty excited about that. That means that, like if you think about it, with what that's really talking about is like when you spin up a Kubernetes cluster, the components that make up the control plane of that cluster need to be kind of like highly trusted components, because those components are the thing that is basically comprising the control plane, like all of the actual business of starting up containers, doing all of that stuff, right? What if that particular image that was, defining pods was compromised and was injecting something else in those pods, right? Like one of the ways that we can combat that particular what if game is by having a secure supply line, so that we can ensure that the thing that shipped from the Kubernetes project itself is the thing that you're running inside of your cluster. And this is just some of the work done to improve that particular challenge. Another great talk by Anais and Rory, which I'm really looking forward to. Two of my favorite people in the cloud native space. Rory is one of my fellow geese in the SIG Honk project, and also Anais is just always sharing her knowledge and exploring things and just continuing to really move the ball forward for so many people who are trying to learn this space and things in it. Definitely come check out this talk. This is a too much to choose, making a sense of a smorgasbord of security standards. And what they're referring to is like, I mean, is it going to be the CIS, the Center for Internet Security? Is it like, you know, a variety of other different tooling out there that are actually defining for better security models inside of Kubernetes and in containerization in general? And they try to take you on a tour of what these things are and help you kind of make a decision about what it is. A threat modeling Kubernetes talk. I do find myself spending a lot of time talking about this, and partially it's because Cilium, to some degree, is a security product, right? Like, I mean, it's one of the three words that we use to describe what we do, right? We talk about it being security, observability, and connectivity. And whenever you're talking about security, a great place to start is by doing a threat model, right? When you're going to write network policy that will better isolate the workloads, the question becomes, like, what does that network policy have to do? What challenges is it trying to mitigate so that you can ensure that when you define that network policy, it is actually satisfying the requirement that you have? And so a threat model, regardless of what layer of security that you're going to implement, is always a great place to start, because then you actually know what problems you're trying to solve. If you don't begin with a threat model, you can quickly spend all of your energy running in 1,000 different directions rather than actually trying to solve real specific problems that you actually can quantify, right? Threat models are amazing, and I do recommend checking this out. So Lewis is one of the co-hosts of Cloud Native Security Day, and he is the last few times I've actually seen Lewis in person, he was always exhausted because he was doing so much work to get all these CTFs ready. And so I'm actually really looking forward to seeing him in person in KubeCon this year.
Oh yeah, for sure. And also, like, just looking at his speaker profile, he's the head of training for Control Plane. So you know he's going to be a charismatic speaker for sure. So I totally think this is going to be a great one.
I agree. He is a great speaker and just has a great perspective on all of this stuff. And then the others we've already talked about. The keynote, the APIs people. Of course, I am also a big Stephen Augustus fan, so always good to see him out there talking. And then the Hitchhiker's Guide with Lockie. That should be really fun.
That'll be really great, yep. Also, really quickly from the comments, Eric Smalling mentioned that the security day for the AWS Security Day is actually 2 days this year rather than 3.
That's right, it is. And Liz agrees with me that Lewis is great, and I can't say enough. Lewis is totally awesome. Hey, Carlos. Hey, Eric. Hey, Russell. Good to see you all. And Mr. John Harris checking in. So lots of great folks in the audience. If you have anything you want to add to this, where the notes are. They're in the bottom right-hand corner. Otherwise, I think that covers everything we wanted to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone wants to drop in chat which ones that they're interested in, for sure, let us know. But yeah, I think this is pretty much everything we wanted to talk about. We could. I also just love talking about KubeCon. If you want to just talk about it for a second, if those of you are watching, if you have never been to a KubeCon, I super recommend it. It's easily one of the best events that I go to every year when it's in person and I'm able to go to it. Obviously, the virtual con has also been really fun, but no, the KubeCon is just so much fun. It's the most important part to me is always the hallway track. Getting to run into people, see people, and really interact with other members of the community, face to face. It's really, really great. Yep.
Yeah, I'm also always impressed with the mentoring efforts, right? There's lots of great stuff in the schedule. If you're just trying to get to, if this is your first KubeCon or if this is your first opportunity to learn about a lot of these technologies, I've always just been super impressed by how many people are really into it. Being able to help people up or answer questions. I
totally agree. Every year there's a mentoring kind of table thing where you switch tables with people.
Yeah, almost like a speed dating thing, but
yeah, it's a mentorship speed dating, which I participated in. It's so much fun, and I highly recommend trying to find that, checking it out. I know there's always a lot going on, obviously, at KubeCon. There's so much to see, so much to do, but if you can, check out the mentorship speed dating. Essentially, it's really cool.
Yeah, you get to meet different people from different parts of the community, working on different things, and really kind of get a sense of I think it's amazing because it makes it really clear that so much of the power of this community is behind enabling others to succeed, right?
Yeah.
And that's just, for me, that's what keeps the lights on for me. Like if that weren't happening, I don't think I would be nearly as interested in this community as I am, in helping.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's different companies, same team mentality. Everyone is looking to build everybody else up. I don't think I've ran into one person who's trying to hoard their knowledge, right? People just want to give and give and give, and it's really great. And going to KubeCon, you actually get to see all these things. It's really awesome.
Yeah. Cool. I was wondering about it. So the list says hallway track for few. I thought it was actually for the win.
I thought she was hallway track. Whew, it's so exhausting.
It can be a lot. Yeah,
it can be.
If you see us out there, in the hallway track, definitely come say hello. There should be lots of really good opportunities to see people in person.
Yeah, for sure. And it is exhausting. I'm an extroverted person, but even at the end of the day, I'm I gotta just not talk to anyone. At the end of a KubeCon, I'm I will not speak for another week.
Yeah. Yeah, you always need kind of a break after that. But indeed, I will enjoy the KubeCon. I'm sad not to see you there. Perhaps I will see you in Boston, Russell.
You mean Detroit?
I mean Detroit, like I said. But Detroit is also coming up. That'll be a fun one. So I think that was everything I think that was everything we had to share. I want to say thank you to all of you who are tuning in, and I hope that all of the things that we covered will help you. Again, if you go to the notes that are below Nick over there, just down over there, I can never point,
I know.
Yeah. Then you can actually go to this document, and then all of the talks that we've highlighted in here, you can actually click on them and just add them right to your schedule, right? So if you wanted to if you log in to this head, you would have another button right here that says add to schedule. So if any of these talks caught your eye, you can actually add them to your schedule. And then, of course, after the show is over, after KubeCon is over, the recorded talks are linked to the schedule. So even if you don't get to attend them in person, or if you haven't been able to see them in person, you can actually go to the schedule after the show is over and be able to see a link to those talks as they are hosted on YouTube after the show. So it makes it easier. This is also a handy way of just keeping track of those things that you want to come back and watch later. If you have not already got another method for that, this is a great one. So
yeah, today I learned. I actually did not know that.
It's true, yeah.
So that's great.
In fact, I think I can prove it. Let's see. Okay,
yeah, show us your receipts.
21. This is the schedule. And if I click on one of them, dun, 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 they're making a liar out of me.
Oh, no.
It used to be that we linked the recording. Oh, wait, this is actually an event. I want to go to a talk. Advanced troubleshooting.
Yeah, they probably won't have a recording of an event.
Oh, I think maybe if you're logged in, you can see it.
Oh, okay.
But you cannot see it like on the old one. It used to be that you'd be able to link directly to it, but I think you have to log in and you'd be able to see it here at the bottom, if I remember correctly.
We'll have to file an issue.
Yeah. What the heck? All right. Anyway.
Well, sorry, Duffy.
I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we'll see you all. We'll see you all soon.
Yep. See you soon. I hope you have a Cilium-rific day.
Exactly.
Bye, everyone.